Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Three Black Docs. We are so excited to have you at our live. I'm coming to you live from Sedona, Arizona. So I'm really excited. I must say we are so grateful to be able to talk about Black History Month. We are thankful to Oncopeptide for sponsoring. And, look, this is the last day of Black History Month, so we're going to make this thing real. But first, we need to go grab our drinks. Ladies, how are y'all doing?
We're doing great, but not as well as you, apparently.
Oh, yes, it is beautiful out here. You see, this is not a background. It's not virtual. I am live up here. So this is awesome.
Yes.
Today I'm even more excited that we have an opportunity to invite one of my besties, Dr. Darlene Gabeau, who's our guest today, to really help us celebrate some instrumental figures in Black history. Hello, Dr. D.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Girl, huh?
I'm kind of nervous. I'm a fangirl, so I'm kind of nervous to be with you guys today.
Whatever. We are so thrilled.
Exactly.
So thrilled. Now, this is happy hour. So we're going to start with our guests as we always do. We like to have manners. Tell us what you're drinking.
Well, I have this. This is, let me get you the bottle so I can really do it justice.
Oh,
it is,
y'all.
It is Martinelli's fine apple cider, circa 19 something.
Okay.
It's not real wine because, I can't
age cider.
Age cider.
Age cider, yeah.
All right, Dr. Z, what you drinking?
Well, today is the Lord's Day. And let us rejoice. No. If you all must know, I did not even have time to put my water on the rocks in a fancy cup.
Come on,
y'all. So it's been a busy week and weekend, as you all ladies know, and I wanted to get my Sunday bike ride in. So you may not know, I ride about 4.5 miles every Sunday.
I did not know.
No, I know. But I've been doing that for the last couple of months. So I had to run in and look decent for Dr. Darlene. So this is what we have. We have water on the rocks.
Awesome. Very good. Dr. T, what you drinking?
Well, it's afternoon. For me, I don't do afternoon tea, but I do afternoon decaf coffee because I'm a huge coffee drinker. So it's that time of day. I got my decaf coffee in my special mug. Thank you very much. It's my afternoon coffee time. Got some water to go with. And just want to take a minute to welcome Darlene in. We laugh because I feel like I know you from hearing so much about you from Karen. So we're super excited for you to join. So thanks for being with us on my favorite day of the week, which is Sunday. So this is cool.
And I'm going to be the heathen amongst the group, and I have my absolute mango. That's what I've got. So I will be drinking on a Sunday. So hallelujah.
I want to know, I didn't know you guys had merch. I want some Three Black Docs merch.
Well, so
where can we get this mug?
Yes, speaking of merch, I'm glad you saw that. There's going to be one lucky viewer today who might actually end up with some 3BD merch. So we're excited about that. And you can check out our website also. I think we'll be putting some stuff on the website at threeblackdocs.com. So folks will be able to grab their own merch. We're excited about it. So.
Cool.
So, Dr. Darlene, you and I go way back. I think I first met you in 2006. And I think your story amongst many of the people that I know is probably one of the most remarkable. And I would love for you to just spend a few moments just sharing your journey, talking about who you are and what your journey into medicine was. I mean, again, we're talking about Black excellence. And when I talk about Black excellence, I always talk about you, my girl. So please, would love to hear your story.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Karen, for that. Yes, we met. I think we first met when you were interviewing for residency. And we were co-residents together and kind of got ourselves through that together. Gosh, where do I start? So I'm a radiation oncologist. I am in clinical practice in Maryland. And I was one of those that always knew that I wanted to be a doctor. At first, it was just something I kind of threw around. You know, you're a little kid. They say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're like, I want to be a doctor. And mostly because, you know, that's what, you know, people thought was the hardest thing to be. And you always got oohs and ahs. And my mother was a nurse's aide. So brother.
Or is that okay?
I'm sorry.
I think you froze, or was that me freezing?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, right. So I always wanted to be a doctor, and I grew up with my mother, who had some health issues. My mother came from Haiti, was a single mom, and you know, had some issues with her health that kind of went undetected, uncared for, and you know how it is often when a woman is just trying to do everything, the health piece and the mental health piece and the things that she needs gets put to the backside. And so my mother did that a lot just to get through each day until it became too much. And it really did impact her ability to function with two young kids. And eventually we lost everything. And so much of my childhood was just trying to kind of get through crises with my mom. You know, we ended up, you know, homeless for several years and just trying to make it through, trying to find the light. And I became almost like a parent to an adult. And so, you know, that continued for many years throughout my childhood until my father came back into the picture. He found out that my mother was going through some difficulty. And so around, you know, when I was 12, I went and lived with my father. And that was really the first time that there was some stability in life. And at that point, when I said that I wanted to be a doctor, it was something that he acted on, and he put me in programs and helped me to actually make it more than just something that I said. And then in high school, there was a program called the Gateway to Medicine program, and it was actually designed for underprivileged students who thought that maybe they had an inkling that they wanted to do medicine. And it was meant to really give us the foundation that we needed to actually do it. So that's when things really changed. That's when I knew that I was definitely going to become a doctor, was in high school. And so that led to me doing kind of a lot of science in high school. I ended up going to Wellesley College, where I met Vivian Penn for the first time, and she motivated me a lot just with her excellence in her. She was just always on point, and she was always around. She always was at things, at panels, encouraging women and minorities to go and do science and do medicine. And so, you know, for all those reasons, I've been very fortunate to end up with you guys here as a Black doc.
Yeah. Now, Darlene, you mentioned the Gateway program. You actually did the Gateway program with some of your best friends, in fact, right?
Yeah.
And how many of that group actually became doctors of that program that in your year?
Yeah, so the Gateway to Medicine program, it was started by an oncologist. There was a gentleman named Alfred Gellhorn, and he was the dean of the University of Pennsylvania. And he noticed that there were just so few women and African Americans in medicine. So at Penn, he started trying to bring more women and more Blacks into medicine at Penn. And, you know, he really didn't feel like he was getting where he wanted to get with it. So he founded a medical school at City College in New York called the Sophie Davis Institute for Biomedical Sciences. And that was specifically designed, it was a 6-year medical program, it still exists today, specifically designed to train underrepresented people in medicine. And what he noticed was that the students that were coming into it were just not prepared to really withstand the rigors of a medical education. So he designed a high school pipeline program, and that's what Gateway to Medicine was. And so I was in the first class. There were 40 of us in my high school of like 2,000. And of the 40, gosh, I know at least 8 of us became medical doctors. Many of us got doctorates in other fields.
Yeah.
And most of us, I would say probably 95% of us ended up going to college.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
That's
Even
amazing.
20% yield for Black doctors is amazing.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah.
And so what made you tell us a little bit about, medical school and what made you decide on oncology as a career choice?
So medical school, I thought I wanted to do OBGYN. I was in an MD PhD program, and I thought I wanted to be a medical scientist with a lab, and I wanted to study women's health issues. And I did a GYN sub internship. And the part of the GYN sub internship that I really liked was gynecologic oncology. I really like that patient population, very difficult diseases, trying to get women through that. And that's what made me think about oncology, was from the GYN perspective. And then someone in my MD PhD program said, if I like gynecologic oncology, it was going to be really hard to do that and also be a basic scientist, because just the surgical demands and everything, that I should check out radiation oncology. And so that's how I found out about radiation oncology. I did a rotation, and I realized that there was a lot of flexibility, and you could see those patients and still have enough time to do other things and not, be tied to the OR. So that's how I came to do radiation oncology as a career.
And because and you know how, so she skipped where she was. So she was at Yale, y'all, for her MD PhD. I'm just saying, okay.
She just skipped over that, didn't she?
Yes.
You know how we do that.
Yes.
No, we're talking about Black excellence. So my friend was at Yale getting her MD PhD, and you were hardcore basic science, right?
I was. So I did my PhD in neurobiology, developmental neurobiology. And, I really did think that I wanted to have a lab and, only be 20% clinical, 80% research, and discover things that would really have application to practice. But so that's what I was doing.
Okay. And so, all right, we get to the part where we're in residency and we doing our thing, and you were a year ahead of me. So
Right.
Again, like one of my mentors, peer mentors are just as important, if not even more important, y'all, when it comes to getting us through some of the life challenges. But you actually were thinking about doing neuroscience, and you also had a fabulous job when you first came out of your training program. So let's talk a little bit about that, which was at Harvard, by the way. I'm just in case, again, Black excellence. She went from Yale to Harvard. Okay. She went Wellesley, Yale, Harvard. Okay. Just had to throw that in. Yeah.
Yeah. So throughout residency, I still wanted to do basic science and do research as my primary career path. So I actually did a fellowship in molecular pathology at Mass General during my research time in residency. And when I finished residency, I took an 80% research, 20% clinical job, because I was on this track. And that's where, I really just was looking to do that kind of work. And so I went to New York. I was at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I did clinic 1 day a week. And most of the rest of the time I was doing research. And by this point, it had gone from just basic research to more translational type research. So I was studying, liver cancer, SBRT, or special types of radiation for liver disease, and trying to build a program around that. But something happened my second year in my 80% research job. We lost a bunch of faculty. One had a major medical issue and had to leave. One left to start a private practice. One did something else. And I got pulled from my research life into clinical life. And, I was really frustrated by that at first. And we were recruiting for faculty. And I realized over the course of several months that I actually really liked being a clinician. And it was kind of mind-blowing because you get into this real mindset that you are on this track, you've worked toward this particular thing, and when life is telling you that that might not be the right thing, it blows you away. I was so distraught for a long time that this was happening, that I was finding my passion someplace else. And so I went through a real mindset change. I had to get some therapy, some career counseling to accept that I actually wanted something different than the track that I had set myself on for so many years, until I was okay with that. And then I could make some moves. And then I really did a career shift from there.
Can I just interject something here? Thank you for saying that, because I feel like, especially when you see folks who are so accomplished like yourself, right? And you have all of the pedigree, you got all of the Ivy League pedigree, you're a rad-onc doctor, but acknowledging the parts of your journey that were difficult for you. Yeah. And how you dealt with that, I think is so important for folks to hear that, you look at folks who you think have it all together and you feel like they never went through anything, or there was never any doubt, or there was, none of that. And I just love the fact that you actually told that part of your story. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, it was really hard because, it's you think you're on the path, you think you have to do things a certain way. You're kind of fed what the definition of success is. And when you realize you have to define that for yourself, at first it really shakes you. And then you realize that success is the thing that makes you happy and makes you want to wake up every day to pursue what you're doing, and not this formulaic thing that you feel like you have to follow. And it took me a long time to get to that. So
I think that's not just medicine. I think that's just a great life lesson. I really do. So thank you for that. And I can relate to it, but thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people will get a lot of value from you sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. With the definition of success, because I know you could see us back here like, yes, this is exactly what we need to hear, because when you're on this path, you think that you have to do things a certain way. And you see so many people who never, unlike you, they didn't listen. And they may have achieved success, but they don't feel the success inside. And sometimes you can tell that. So I'm so happy that you made the decision for yourself, and you're growing and you've defined success for yourself, because I think I never really understood that until recently, that success, you have to define success for yourself. So again,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Such an awesome message. And, again, Dr. Darlene was successful in academia. And then when she left Einstein, she was successful in the next segment. Just real brief, Dee, talk a little bit about what you did, because I talk about you as being my, when I'm ready to make a life change, I'm like, okay, right? So talk a little bit about your next step, because you had massive success in step 2, and then you transition from there as well. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I decided that I was leaving academic practice, I had to shut down the program that I had and make sure that people were tidy. And then I went off and went into community practice. So I joined a practice in Rhode Island that was kind of a hybrid type practice. And was, the first couple of years I was a doc. I took care of patients and really enjoyed doing that. But I realized that there were areas in the practice that could be run differently, that I could have input in, and especially in relationships with the hospitals and all of that. So then I entered more of the administrative kind of practice running end of the job. So I ended up becoming the director of a cancer center in Southern Rhode Island, and the director of it was a national practice called 21st Century Oncology. It had, practices all over, and we had a New England division. So I ended up directing the New England practices. There were 5 practices in that area, and really just learning how to run a practice, how to run a practice that was affiliated with multiple entities, and having to build relationships with hospitals and hospital leadership. And, it was just a real learning process, and one that had very direct impact on the things that we were able to do for patients in the clinic. So that leadership piece, that practice running piece, really, I grew a lot in that. It was really fun.
Yeah, just incredible. And she even tried to recruit me to work for her. I would have done it too, but I'm not quite ready for that. But
Right.
we had a question from one of our viewers. Maria asked, how do we stop doubting ourselves as professional women? And look, all of us do this. So, Tiff and Z, why don't you talk a little bit about, what's your response to this?
So how do you stop doubting yourself as a professional woman? I would love to hear Dr. Darlene's answer for this, but I'll be honest. You know what the thing is? I think that you have worked hard to get to where you are. Believe in the work that you've put in. Because some of the people that are sitting in the room, more than them. And when you show up with all of yourself. And so I think there have been many times that the 4 of us have been maybe the only woman in the room, maybe the only person of color in the room. But that's a fact, but that's the only fact. We're not any less qualified. In some cases, you may be more qualified. And when you show up with everything that you've put in the work already. Just show up as yourself.
Woo! Fire.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Dr. Tip, what you got to say about that?
I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know. I want to hear what everybody else has to say, because I think this is like an ongoing struggle, right? For professional women. For me, it's very helpful to surround myself with friends and mentors like yourself, and people who can be honest that they're going through the same things, and hearing those stories and kind of acknowledging that, like, we all feel the same way. I'm not the only one, that feels like this. I think the other thing that Z said is right. There have been times when opportunities have presented themselves, and, you kind of get kudos of like, oh, you're this and that. And I'm like, no, not really. It's the doubting again. And then you have situations that reveal to you that, like, oh, maybe I am pretty good at what I do. Right. So for me, it's been leaning into that and trusting that of like, oh yeah, I am a good doc. I am good at what I do. And I've gotten better about that as I've gotten older. I think that's an age thing too. But I think it's still definitely still part of the journey. For me. So Dr. Darlene, we're putting you on the spot to have all the answers as our guest.
No, I don't have any answers.
Go ahead, Dee. I was going to say, I mean, you said one of the things that you did, but go ahead and respond.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's several ways that I fight the doubt. The doubt is real. The doubt is real. But I think the primary way that I fight the doubt is by this right here that we're doing right here. I have some really core friendships that when I'm doubtful, I can pick up the phone and say, here's the scenario, and kind of work my way through it with people who I love and respect and I trust, who I know will tell me the truth, whether it's, good or bad, and who I can role play, right, scenarios through. So then when I'm in the real situation, I've kind of worked some things through. So friendships, peer mentors and friendships. And then sometimes things are too heavy to put on, even on your friends. Your doubts are too heavy sometimes, even for your friends. And that's when you also get the professionals involved. So when I was really struggling with the changes in my career and the doubts that I had about the decisions that I was making, I had professional help. I went to a therapist, a counselor, and really were. And that helps with the doubt when you kind of work it through and internally feel like you kind of know what you want and where you're going, then you can deal with the doubt much more easily.
Yes. And that's what I mean, literally getting professional help. And we've always on this podcast tried to normalize mental health and making sure that people are addressing mental health. But there's two different things, right? There's a career coach, and there's also kind of a counselor that really, I think sometimes people need a little bit of both. And I think it's okay to need that to really help strengthen ourselves. But the other thing that's important, we all talked about the importance of friendships and colleagues. This actually talks to and speaks to the importance of workforce diversity, right? And I know that's something, again, we talk about a little bit as well. And I don't know if any of you wanted to share, we're going to talk about other, examples of Black excellence, but why is workforce diversity, other than making sure you have somebody who may be able to relate, why else is workforce diversity important?
Gosh, so many reasons. I know, I think that the piece about having someone there that many people can relate to is really important. Right? Because if you want to bring people up, diversify the student bodies, or diversified, residency programs, whatever, you need to have leaders who people can look up to. And so, I think that just to
Yeah. So it looks like Dr. D is coming in and out here. It's freezing.
Tiff, talk a little bit about, from your perspective, why is workforce diversity important?
Yeah. Well, from the one hand, from a personal standpoint, it's having that core group of folks that you can be authentic and be real, right, with what's going on. And I know Z and I have talked about this before, but our offices used to be down the hall from each other, and I essentially forced my friendship onto her and was like, hey, we're both Black women from Louisiana, and we work so you have no choice, you're going to be my friend, and I'm just not going away until we're friends. And so but the value in that was to have someone that that you could just be very authentic, and be yourself with all the time, and not feel like not feel like you had to put any of your guard up or like play any kind of position or anything like that. I think from a medical standpoint, the reason I value it is I think in medicine it's crucial that we've got different viewpoints, right, when it comes to how we approach the health of our patients and in our communities. And, you know, we talk about this all the time too, but part of the reason we started the podcast is just because of who we are in our histories. We do have our eye on what's going on in Black communities and how we're, you know, affected differently. And so I think that brings a lot of value into medicine, practice in medicine.
Absolutely. And just piggybacking off what Dr. Tiff said, I didn't realize how important workforce diversity was until Dr. Karen and Dr. Tiffany came to my institution. I would hear Tiffany down the hall, girl. And so I knew we could close the door and it would be a safe space. Or we would meet up and eat lunch. We had our certain days, we would eat lunch. And then there were also certain times that I knew Tiffany was coming to my office, and I would try to plan my day around that. And when I had it and I lost it, I realized what I was losing. And I didn't know what I had until it happened. So um, we were able to not only inspire each other, but it was just a safe space. And within Three Black Docs, this has opened up things that I never, ever thought I would ever do. And so I think the way that we encourage each other, I couldn't imagine not having that. And so um, I do. I think you need to find your people, and you really should be able to have a safe space at work, and having different groups of people allows that to happen. So this is something that is necessary.
Yes, yes, and necessary for our colleagues who look different from us. They need to
Absolutely.
hear our stories. They need to understand that not everyone's, family legacy is generations of doctors and physicians, and or even college education. That we bring our authentic self to the table. That benefits our patients, absolutely, but it also benefits the institution, because they get to understand how to interact with people from different backgrounds, so they can take better care of everyone, So there's that component as well. And, Dr. Darlene, you mentioned Vivian Penn, and I had the honor of meeting her a few times. She dragged me to Chicago with her for a few things. This is when she was directed. Can you just give us a little bit of an overview? We're going to talk about some Black excellence, and Dr. Tiff and Dr. Z, you get ready with your peeps too. We're going to start with Dr. Darlene. Is going to talk a little bit about Dr. Vivian Penn.
Yeah, so Dr. Vivian Penn is someone that I know all of you have tremendous admiration for. Dr. Penn actually went to Wellesley College, and that's how I was first introduced to her, because she would come to the college to mentor and to, sit on panels encouraging women, in particular Black women, to enter science, pursue careers in medicine and science and research. And so I met her at one of these panels. And subsequently to that, whenever there was any kind of panel around the country, she would be there, really trying to get women to be involved in science and medicine. So her history is that she was born in Virginia. Her parents were teachers. She was her high school valedictorian. She went on to get her bachelor's degree in zoology from Wellesley. And during the time that she was at Wellesley, during her sophomore year, her mother developed bone metastasis from cancer that had been diagnosed as arthritis. Misdiagnosed as arthritis. And she took a semester off during her time at Wellesley to go care for her mother. She took a year to care for her mother, and that's when it was cemented that she wanted to be a physician, and a physician that, cared for people and listened to stories. And so she went on from Wellesley to enter the medical school at the University of Virginia. She was the only woman and the only African-American in her class at the University of Virginia. Excelled there during her time in medical school, did summer research fellowships up in Boston at Mass General in pathology. So when she finished UVA, she ended up joining the pathology residency program at MGH and excelled there. And when she finished at MGH, she joined the faculty at Tufts, where she served in leadership positions in pathology for 12 years before becoming the very first chair of a pathology department in America. She joined Howard University as the chair of pathology and served there, really developed that program, became the president of the National Medical Association, and then left Howard and became the inaugural director of the Office for Research on Women for NIH, where she served for 20 years and did amazing work, making sure that women were included in clinical trials, and just advocating for women throughout her career. So she was amazing. And always looked impeccable with like her suits and her hair and her, oh, she was something. I mean, she continues to be something. She's in retirement now, but is still a steady advocate for research and women in science.
And you know what's fascinating is I really do think when I look at some of these leaders that we're going to talk about, these leaders that not only express Black excellence, but they've opened doors for other people, right? I mean, how many lives do you think Vivian Penn has touched through her work with the Office of Research in Women's Health, right? It's like countless. And so this is, again, why diversity is important. So workforce diversity, it breeds innovation and thinking outside the box. And she had to create an entire division at the National Institutes of Health. And so really, really special woman. And so thank you for talking about Dr. Penn. And so Dr. Tiff, like, who is someone that you want to talk about?
Okay, so I am going to talk about we're talking about innovators, folks who have changed the course of our specialties. So this is Dr. Jane Wright. And what is fascinating about Dr. Wright to me is the following. For those of us in oncology, we know that the largest organization for clinical oncologists is ASCO, right? The American Society of Clinical Oncology, which I think the membership is now over 50,000. We have an annual meeting, which is like the Super Bowl, I guess, for oncologists internationally. You go there are people from all over the world. There are tens of thousands of people, and it's like our Super Bowl, right? So one fine day I was at ASCO and they were celebrating their founding, because they were founded in 1964, by highlighting their 7 founders. So their 7 founders, 6 men, 1 woman. And 6 white men, 1 woman who was Jane Wright. And at that point, that was 2014, I had been a trainee in oncology. I'd never heard of her until then, until I learned then that, she was one of the 7 founders of ASCO. So it was a very interesting story. Her birthday, which I happen to know because we share a birthday. I'm not saying it means anything, but it probably means something. I'm just saying. But she was born November 20th, 1919. And her father was also a physician, right? And so, in fact, after she graduated from medical school, from New York Medical College, she did her training at Bellevue in New York, but then worked with her dad at Harlem Hospital, where they worked together on developing chemotherapy. Now, here's a fun fact. Her dad was in the lab doing lab research, and she was doing the patient trials. Okay, this was in the 1940s when chemotherapy was still new, very experimental, right? And so she was working on bringing that to patient trial. She also developed a new way to test the chemotherapy drugs in the lab. Instead of doing it in mice, she did it in human tissue culture, which is a lot more informative in terms of trying to get this into, human patients into trials. And so, as I read about her and learned about her, I was like, this is like a translational model. We talk a lot about translational medicine, which is like, bench what you find in the lab and getting it out to patients. And she and her dad were doing that together, which is pretty cool. When her dad died in the 50s, she became the head of the chemotherapy service at the Harlem hospital, but then eventually went back to NYU and headed their chemotherapy services. LBJ named her to his national task force for oncology as well. And so she had this amazing career. But in 1964, she met at a hotel with the six other founders of ASCO, and they formed the society, which again is like the force for us in clinical oncology. And what I think is so fascinating, since we're talking about workforce diversity, is when you read what ASCO says about their 7 founders, they credit her with making sure there was a patient-centered focus in ASCO. So again, it's like, okay, yeah, she was the only woman founder, the only Black founder too, and they credit her with a patient-centered focus. So
Awesome.
again, it's that idea of having different voices and different experiences in medicine. And so she passed away, I believe, in 2013. But yeah, so I was floored to see her picture up at ASCO, those years ago. And so just as another side note, I was intrigued by the fact that her dad was a doctor. So then I was reading about her dad. Well, her dad's dad, so her grandfather, was born into slavery, but then he also went to medical school and then left being a physician to be a Methodist minister. So anyway, I mean, they just have this rich family history, which I think is fascinating. But she is considered like the mother of chemotherapy. She also developed methotrexate, which is one of the drugs that we use for leukemia, lymphoma, breast cancer, et cetera. So that's Dr. Wright.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, I wanted to mention that our current ASCO president is Dr. Lori Pierce, who happens to be a radiation oncologist, whoop, whoop, but also happens to be an amazing Black woman. And so it's so funny how there's all of this overlap that we see in terms of the people that we're chatting about today. So Dr. Lori Pierce actually went to medical school at Duke, which is my alma mater. And then she went on to finish her radiation oncology residency at University of Pennsylvania. What's interesting and what I didn't realize about her is that she actually was a senior scientist at the National Cancer Institute for a couple of years. So she did that for a few years before she actually decided to move to University of Michigan. So I have known her as a tenured professor at the University of Michigan in radiation oncology. And again, I've always been looking for models and, Black individuals that I could say, all right, this is somebody who's doing what I'd like to do. She has had an amazing career at the University of Michigan. She was the residency director there, helping to train the next generation, right? She was also clinical director of the Department of Radiation Oncology. And more recently, she was actually, I guess it was 2005, she was appointed by the University of Michigan to be the vice provost for academic and faculty affairs. And she still holds that position while she also is ASCO president, right? So not only is she an amazing clinician, she focuses on breast, right? So, I mean, we are breast oncologists, many of us. It's fascinating. Her research has really focused on how to improve the life and well-being of women with breast cancer. And so again, Black excellence and thinking about this importance of workforce diversity. Dr. Z, who's
Yes, Dr. Karen. So, we're talking about these absolutely outstanding physicians, oncologists, radiation oncologists. I wanted to talk about an outstanding hematologist. So, basically, someone who studies blood. So, Marilyn Hughes Gaston, I don't know if you all have heard of her or not. This amazing woman was born in Ohio in 1939 in public housing, became interested in medicine when her mother fainted out of the blue, and come to find out her mother had cervical cancer. And so they went through all the issues of, being poor and uninsured. And she really knew by the time she was 9 that she wanted to be a physician, even though there was no path for her. So she figured out a path. She found mentors. She also studied zoology, interestingly enough, but ended up going to the University of Cincinnati and went on to residency. And so in residency, there was a baby that came in with a swollen hand. And she is going, really trying to figure out what in the world is wrong with this baby. She could not figure it out. And eventually, one of the other physicians mentioned, well, maybe the baby has sickle cell disease. And she said, well, why didn't I think of this? Why don't, what's happening? I'm seeing babies, they have these swollen, infected wrists. What is going on? And so because of that, she went to the NIH and started studying sickle cell disease. So I'm sure you all have heard of sickle cell disease, but basically this is an inherited disease where your blood cells are misshapen and the cells can't carry the oxygen and they die quickly. It causes pain, causes lots of infections. And so she is the first author on the 1986 New England Journal of Medicine paper that showed that prophylactic penicillin improves outcomes for babies with sickle cell disease. To this day, babies with sickle cell receive penicillin when they are born. Not only that, she did not stop there, though. She did not stop. She was also instrumental in helping to create legislation so that every single newborn that is born in the United States is screened for sickle cell disease. She is directly responsible for that. So she has saved the lives of countless people with sickle cell disease, honestly, around the world. So not only in the U.S. but several countries screen for sickle cell disease, and it was all from the observation that, hey, something is wrong. This is a public health problem. I failed to mention that she went and got a public health degree, but wait, there's more. She became the first Black woman to direct the Bureau of Primary Health Care in the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration. This lady
Wow.
is fabulous.
And wait, but so some of our listeners may not know, many do.
Okay.
Which community is most impacted by sickle cell disease? Right?
Black people are most impacted by sickle cell disease. I mean, this is a disease that is devastating for so many reasons. And because of what she did, people are now living longer because we can help people live through infancy. And not only that, I mean, we can screen, that we can find out that there's a problem early so we can treat early. So um, I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people had never heard of her. So I'm just happy to have the opportunity to talk about her.
Yes, thank you. I mean, because I hadn't heard of her. And so, again, this is a disease that primarily impacts people of color, African Americans in particular. There are so many amazing people of color doing amazing things. So I know today we're chatting about Black excellence. I find it fascinating that all of us talked about Black women. What? Hiller, right? Not to say there's not amazing Black men, but I do think that this is a really, really wonderful way for us to celebrate, the people who are making important discoveries that really help to change lives. I'm looking at some of the comments in the chat box because, even talking about having science informing policy. So listen, yes, Kimberly.
Yeah.
That's one that I love. Right? And so Dr. Penn was at the NCI. Actually, all three of the women, or three of the four women that we discussed today, actually had roles at the National Institutes of Health.
Mm-hmm.
right? Just
Mhm.
crazy.
Yes, and Dr. Wright was on LBJ's panel. So
Yes,
there
yes,
you go.
yes. Wow.
I think that's fascinating because I think it's like, you know, again, seeing a problem and thinking about how you can apply it at large and impact the most people, and that they all tended to think that way. I think that's so fascinating. I don't know.
Yeah, they are fast, and I appreciate learning about Dr. Wright and Dr. Gaston. I was actually born in Harlem Hospital, so it's amazing to hear of the contributions that she and her father made to that organization. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, this is just, when I say, so first of all, you guys are going to get me all emotional up in here because, February is a very difficult month for me personally, right? It's JD's birthday. It's our anniversary month of when we started dating. And even though he's been gone for almost 3 years, there's still a huge gaping hole. But I must say that each of you has been there for me throughout this entire journey in ways that I can't even imagine. And so for me, Black excellence goes beyond just what we do academically. And it speaks to who we are individuals, right? Who we are as friends. And, I remember when I couldn't get out of bed, I have a knock on my front door and it's Darlene. Darlene flew down from Maryland to come and get me out of bed. She's like, get up, when JD first died. And I remember Tiff coming over and just kind of just giving me big bear hugs, and being there and crying with me. And Dr. Z coming over and bringing over a big birthday, sign, even though like it was just 2 days after JD's death, but you guys came and celebrated me. That's what Black excellence is about. It's about us being there for each other and celebrating each other. And I must say, I'm going to bring one person on. I know she's going to kill me, but I've got to bring our producer on. And I don't know if Ashley is there. If you can just show your face real quick, honey, because I must say, this chick makes all this happen, right? And she's another example of Black excellence. And I love you. And I just want to thank you for being a part of not only, my healing journey, but also just a part of this whole thing, 3 Black Dots. And thank you, Ash. We aim to share Black excellence with our listeners each and every week on our podcast. And so I'm so grateful. Darlene, thank you for just taking time out of your schedule to be here with 3 Black Docs today. We're not done, y'all. But I felt that I needed to say that to you guys today. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Karen, but you could have given us a heads up because as you recall, I'm the one who cried at Girls Trip when we all went to the movies together, when you could still go to the movie, including Ashley, and we watched Girls Trip.
Not just a regular
like,
cry, guys.
Crying? And I was like, this is a beautiful lesson of friendship. And
wow.
So you know that I need heads up on these sorts of situations. I'm just saying, but thank you for sharing that. That was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I am so thrilled to have gotten to come on with the 3 of you. Like I say, I'm a fan, so I was a little nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm just so thrilled. You guys are doing great programming, and I'll be listening.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't know why you're nervous because your story is incredible. There's so much more we could have discussed, which we didn't, we just didn't have time. So we just gonna have to have you come back. One thing that I did want to bring up is, and I think another reason why I'm emotional is it's important for us to tell people while they're alive how much they mean to us. None of us are promised tomorrow. And so for our listeners who are there, please make sure that you give hugs to the people that you love, that you kind of get on Zoom and chat with your families. I know it's harder with COVID, right? And so this is the time to do that. And I'm bringing this up because, one of my mentors when I was at Harvard passed away. And it was Dr. Michael Bird. And I must say, Dr. Linda Clayton actually chased me down. she is actually a professor at Meharry right now, and she is an OBGYN. But let me tell you, she actually was one of the first gynecologic oncologists. So Tiff, when or actually Dee, when you're talking about GYN oncology, she was the first GYN oncologist really to be board certified, and first Black woman. And so she's amazing in her own right. But I must say her husband, Dr. Michael Bird, passed away. And so in memoriam, I just wanted to share a little bit about their book. They created this amazing anthology called An American Health Dilemma, a medical history of African Americans and the problem of race, beginnings to 1900. And that volumes, it's a 2-volume set. And, Ashley kind of created this amazing little video showing this book. I have this 2-volume set. It is so comprehensive, and it really helped to shape my focus on health equity. People like to think about race as this social construct, but it is. And that social construct has impacted the lives of millions and millions of Americans. And this book outlines that. So I just wanted to say to Linda, I love you, and I look forward to seeing you down in Nashville. I'm so thrilled to be on faculty with you at Meharry. And again, just another example of Black excellence. So I just had to say that in memoriam. And so thank you, Ashley, for sharing that snippet of the book. So we have a few minutes left. Would love to hear what folks, if there are people who are listening, who are the people that you look up to? Are there people, maybe as a doctor that you go to? Are there other examples of Black excellence in your life that you would like to just give a shout out to for our listeners? Please do so. And then in our last few minutes, how we do our round robin, y'all. What are some takeaways from today? And so let's see. Tiffany always says I make her go first. So how about Dr. Z? Do you have a takeaway from today's discussion that you would like to highlight?
I love this episode, but Karen, actually, it's what you said. It's telling the people, giving people their flowers while they're alive. And thank you for allowing me to be in your life. You all are amazing ladies, and my life has grown so much because of you. There is one person that I thought about. I went to Meharry, so I've seen all kinds of Black excellence. I loved everything about my experience at Meharry. But actually, our dean, when I was at Meharry, is someone named Pamela Williams, and unfortunately, she died of breast cancer. But I can't tell you how many times I sat in her office and we just talked. And one day I remember I was studying late and I was working on, we were going through ENT, and I was making sure my ear exam was correct, and I had my otoscope. And she sat down and let me look in her ear. It was about 9:30 at night, and she told me I was too rough, But I just think about people like that, the little things. She may not ever be recognized on big platforms, but she inspired so many students at Meharry. And I don't know that I would be the doctor that I am if she had not come into my life. So, to Dean Williams, who's up
Awesome.
above, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just remember we had said one of our listeners today was actually going to win some 3BD swag, and the winner is Sandra Ross. So Sandra, thank you so much for being one of our listeners. If you want to send a note, a private chat to Wings Production, we'll make sure we get your address and we'll send you your swag. So thank you so much. We literally only have 1 minute left. And so I'd love to just give this to our colleague, Darlene. Dr. Darlene, what word of wisdom would you like to leave for our listeners today? I can't hear you, Dr.
Oh, I said friendship and relationship breed excellence. That's what I would say.
I love that. Dr. Tiff, last minute. Anything, Dr. Tiff?
Same. Thank you guys for allowing me to be part of the group. You both inspire me. Darlene, you do too, because I've heard your story from Karen before. So as I said, I felt like I know you. Thank you, Sandra, for that shout out. That means a lot. And the one thing I would take away from what Dr. Darlene said was her journey, and the fact that when she felt like she was not being authentic, that she allowed herself to pivot and change directions and support herself with everything she needed through that journey, including therapy and working on herself. So that's what I would highlight from the beginning.
Well, thank you. And we are out of time. Again, want to thank Oncopeptides for sponsoring this edition of Free Black Docs. Thank you all listeners for being here. We are so excited. All the chat information will be up on the web. We see all the shout outs to your people. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Darlene, love you, lady. And it's
Thank
so
you.
good.
Bye.
See you later. Bye, guys.